The American Farm Bureau Federation, or AFBF, began as a small county project in Ohio of 1912. It grew out of the state colleges that began to spring up because of the Morrill Act of 1862 and the Hatch Act of 1887, which helped to establish agricultural universities. Dr. Seaman Knapp took learning to the farm with funding from the Department of Agriculture and began to teach farmers how to handle the boll weevil infestation. Eventually, farmers began to see the value of an organization that could be implemented using such a method. The AFBF was ratified in March of 1920 with James Howard as president and immediately began their specialized agendas. During the next 3 years, the AFBF was named the most forceful group of influence in national politics. The title was not unwarranted, as at the time the AFBF had muscled through the Capper-Volstead Act, which allowed farmer cooperatives to work together without being harassed by antitrust laws, and the Muscle Shoals Project, which allowed for the development of cheap domestic fertilizers and hydroelectric power on the Tennessee River. After the major legislative successes of the first 3 years, President James Howard stepped down due to health difficulties and was replaced by Oscar Bradford. As his first act in office, Bradford changed the direction of the Federation to service through cooperative marketing for the first year he was in office. Success did not come during the first year, however. Later in the mid-1920s, success came more easily in the cooperative marketing of minor crops such as sweet potatoes. Due to the stock market crash in 1929, the gross farm income in 1932 had dropped nearly $35 billion. In response to this, President Hoover created the Federal Farm Board to regulate crop surpluses, which the AFBF was reluctant to support. Although the board was ineffective, the decision-making gave the AFBF more pulling power in Congress and allowed them to elect congressmen that were responsive to their needs. In a display of animosity towards President Hoover, the AFBF did not back either presidential candidate, but still heavily supported Roosevelt, who would allow the AFBF to have the Agricultural Adjustment Act, or AAA. The AAA would allow for $2 billion in extra farm loans to support farm mortgages and provide the framework for future farm legislation. During World War II, the AFBF looked to change the AAA to allow for the conservation of farmland and the provision of electricity for farmers. Instead, during this period, the AAA was switching back and forth between AFBF and federal influence, but was eventually put aside in 1955 when President Eisenhower announced that 94.3% of farmers had electricity. Eisenhower also created the Soil Bank Bill, which would give the AFBF their farmland conservation. The latter half of the 20th century saw an increase in global agribusiness and issues such as international trade, chemical availability and use, taxes, and water rights, which still persist today. The main worry of farmers now is the ending of the Farm Bill, which would affect dairy prices and grain prices. Taxes still remain a vibrant part of the AFBF as they look to extend the capital gains tax and reform of the estate tax. Although it is not known how or if these taxes will be extended, it is certain that taxes will remain close to the top of the AFBF's to-do list as they work to aid farmers stay afloat in today's economy, as well as to seek better trade relations with Russia and improve the quality of life in rural areas.